Hi, this is Brandy Shantz, and welcome to Living Chronic. Today, I am speaking with Amelia Meyers, actress, singer, and Mrs. Maryland Petite USA. So, welcome, Amelia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So happy you're here. You have Crohn's disease, just like I do,
Yes.
and you've also experienced possible drug-induced lupus.
Yes.
And we both have a passion for holistic health when it comes to taking care of ourselves with our chronic illness. So,
Absolutely.
it's really exciting to get somebody else on who loves uh, finding holistic, better ways to take care of ourselves instead of just the medication, which we both have to be on.
Right. But there
But
can be a happy medium, and if
yeah,
one medicine's not working, trying something else. It's not just a here you go magic thing to fix it all. It doesn't work that way.
exactly. And I know I've learned a lot over the past 10 years since I was diagnosed, and some of it was stuff I always knew, and taking care of myself, but most of it was just probably, stuff I never would have thought of, because you just don't think of these things before you have a chronic illness.
Absolutely.
Um, and you've been dealing with Crohn's disease for quite a while now. What are some of the things you've learned that you find really helpful in taking care of yourself?
There are so many. So I was diagnosed 21 years ago, which is mind boggling for me to think about that it's already been 21 years. And how much has advanced between now and then is tenfold. But back then, there really wasn't much information. And it was just, oh, you have this, we're going to put you on this drug. And I'm really sensitive and I would react to things. And I kept having all these reactions. And doctors thought I was exaggerating or making something up. And this was before you could just go online and type, what are the side effects of such and
Yes.
such? And I'm like, no, things are happening. And it took a long time to find doctors who would really listen, who would
Hmm.
understand, who would want to try something. Um, I guess one of the biggest things for me was diet, actually. I've always been a very healthy eater. My parents, they really did teach us well, especially my mom. She would talk about eating the rainbow. The more colors
Hmm.
you have on your plate, the better. And that still stands today. I do that with my girls now, too. Eat the rainbow. But who knew if you have an autoimmune disorder, legumes and other foods like that can cause inflammation. And inflammation is the number one worst thing that can happen to you if you have Crohn's, drug induced lupus, any kind of autoimmune issue. And so learning about that, learning to re-love food. I'm a foodie. I love to go to restaurants and try things. It was tweaking it and figuring it out and really listening to my body in a way that I hadn't. I am very much a people pleaser and taking care of other people, not always what am I feeling right now? How is it going? And if I wasn't feeling well, I would push through. It's learning not always to push through, finding what works for you, really leveling into it when something's happening and you're feeling stressed. Honor it, live with it, see what your body is feeling, and move through it. And it turned everything upside down when it all hit. And then there was a miracle drug for a while. I know you and I talked about Remicade for a while. It worked amazing for me for years. It went from having 24 inches of infected area, and they thought they were going to have surgery and I was going to have 2 feet of intestine removed, to it looked like I had never had Crohn's. It was
Amazing.
amazing. And then it stopped. It just stopped working. My body developed the white blood cell antibody, and that was it. And we were back on that roller coaster of let's try this, let's try that. And it's just been an ebb and a flow. And I just want to take what I've learned and what I've experienced and help other people with it.
Yeah, and that's I think what's so unique about well, there's a couple things that are very unique about chronic illness, right? The first one is you talked about sometimes you have to acknowledge what your body is saying to you.
Yes.
And it's interesting. Most of us, I think, we push through things anyways. But when you're chronically ill, we're used to dealing with a level of pain that most people would be locked in their, I'm at work and people are like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I would be locked up. I wouldn't move for a week, but I know that I have to keep going. So I think that makes it even more difficult when you have to stop and say, you know what, I need to take this day
I need to take
to
this time.
heal my
I
body.
need to listen to myself and see what I really need. Because just like you said, you get used to living with a certain level of pain and you just deal with it. So when you go to a doctor and they say, range 0 to 10, what's your pain level? I'm always like, all right, guys, this is going to be skewed because I have an insanely high pain tolerance. I'm going to tell you 2.5. That is someone else's 7. So it was
Yeah.
like trying to put into perspective of that. I know you know what that's like too.
You need a different pain chart. Regular one and then chronically ill
And a
one.
chronically ill one.
We're chronically ill 2.5.
Yes, which is a regular 7 plus. Yeah. The only time I was like, oh, I know the real numbers when I was in labor. I went, nope, nope, I'm nearing a 9 and it's a real 9. This is a real 9. Yeah. But it's food, listening to your body. And I'm an actress and a singer. I have been forever. And I became a voice teacher as my day job. And it was really about teaching breathing. And one thing that I learned myself while I was teaching this is the power of deep breath, the power
Mm.
of it into your body, how it really does trigger the nervous system to settle things down. And being able to, when you're in a flare, be in touch with yourself, do some deep breathing, and kind of get through the pain of the moment.
Yes, that's a really great tip, because it does help.
It helps.
Um, And we talked a little bit, you are also certified in nutrition,
I am, yes.
and I have my personal training license. I feel like those are very compatible to be, since
Yes.
everything we know about being chronically ill. But I do sometimes when I didn't think about it, so you just said that, but sometimes when I'm having a bad flare, I'm having a lot of pain, I actually do light yoga
Hmm.
with steam, and it really does do
It
something. That
does
hot
help.
yoga, light yoga, just stretch it out. It really goes a long way. And I think yeah, it's the breathing.
The breathing is huge. One of my former students, this was before I was a mom. She became a mom first, about a year before I did. And she said to me when she was in labor, she threw the Lamaze class she took out the window and did my deep breathing. She was like, I would not have gotten through labor without the tools you taught me. I went, really? So I kept that in mind because when I was pregnant, I was looking at the differences between Lamaze breathing, deep, real deep diaphragm breathing, which is different than belly breathing and different than yoga breathing, but really getting in there. And it's true when you're in the throes of pain, whether it's labor or a Crohn's flare or anything else, that breath, it makes such a huge difference. And I recently became a certified arts therapist as well. I've always said my teaching is half therapy, half singing anyway. I tell all my new clients that I'm like, it's good. Safe walls, whatever you say to me in here, I'm not going to say. We really dig in. And now that I have the arts therapy certification, so much of it really does deal with the breath, triggering the neuro system to really be in tune. There's so much with it that really does cause healing to a degree and helping you through a flare.
You're right. It's the best way. I always, you know, the other unique part of chronic illness, it's not like getting a cancer diagnosis, which you don't want that either. But things are far more, well, we're going to do this treatment plan. It's going to last 6 months. You're going to ring the bell at this time, and then you'll move on, and we'll check you again in 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
With us, it's very much,
It's like this.
we'll try this. Well, maybe we'll do this.
Yeah.
Let's throw you on prednisone. That always seems to help something, at least.
Oh, prednisone.
Not my favorite. But when you go through this, you realize, I can't keep my whole life on hold.
No.
It's one thing to go in and say, okay, you know what? I've got 6 months of treatments for cancer. I know that this is a stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and let me plan based on that. This is what the doctor has said. It's a whole other thing when they're just like, well, I don't know. We're just going to keep trying. So you can't put your life on hold.
The
So,
scariest thing, yes,
techniques, the learning to eat, just figuring out how to get out there and just live your life.
and live your life. There are times where I'd be on set shooting something, and unfortunately, I couldn't eat what craft services had provided. And this was right when I was figuring this out when I was in Los Angeles. I'd already had Crohn's for a long time, but I was bleeding through the medication.
Hmm.
Everything I was trying, it wasn't working at that point. That's when Remicade had stopped working. And I wound up on a drug called 6-MP. And that seemed to do the trick for a while until it didn't. And
Yep.
in 2012, I had a complete autoimmune system crash, and I wound up in the ICU at Cedars-Sinai for 11 days, and it was very touch and go. And
Hmm.
I did not realize how scary and close to a near-death experience it was until about a month later when they were calling to check up on me. And a nurse said something she probably shouldn't have said on the phone. And she went, oh my gosh, I'm looking at your numbers. You're lucky to be alive. How
Oh
did you
my,
survive that? Your white blood count, it hits a point where if it goes below a certain number, you technically should not be living.
right.
And I had dropped below that point. and my organs were shutting down one by one. And they went, oh my gosh, we're taking you off of absolutely every single medicine that is in your body right now. We are doing a complete autoimmune reset, and we're going to see if this works. And luckily, I just started really tweaking with the diet before then,
Hmm.
leaned in hard. My husband, the poor man, we weren't engaged yet. He had the ring in his pocket. He was literally planning on proposing 2 weeks later, so they wouldn't let him in the room. I had to have a spinal tap. They didn't know what was wrong. And I
Yeah.
had 3 teams on me, including the infectious disease team.
Hmm.
But that is how I got into the number one Crohn's doctor in Los Angeles, was during this whole time. And for 2 years, I was completely medication free, focusing on the diet and feeling really good.
Hmm.
And it was this thing of, oh, this is what it feels like to not be in pain every day.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I got so used to it the other way. You don't have to live that way. So it's one of those things of coming close to nearing the end, learning to slow down and listen to yourself.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to control your life. You are still in control of your life. But when you start with the flare, stop and listen. And I
Yep.
did have another flare 2 years later. So, and I haven't had a flare since 2014. That was my last flare.
Good for you. Congratulations. That's a
Thank
great
you.
run.
Thank you.
Almost 10 years now.
Almost. I just had a
Oh,
colonoscopy a month ago. Always so fun.
I know. I
And
remember this.
yeah. And they said, you are in remission. We don't see anything. Keep doing what you're doing and we'll see you back. They let me do 3 years now. Normally it's every 2. Now I can wait 3 years.
Ooh, I've never made it that far.
This is my first time in 20
Inspirational.
years. Yeah. So I'm
Wait,
very
two
excited.
2 years is the longest I've gone, and they're like, "Nope, you're back."
It's time. Yep. Yep. But listening to yourself, it's huge. How do you feel about that?
I think it's the most important thing, and you learn as you go. It's just
Yeah.
like, how as women, we know you learn more and more about your body the older you get, the more you understand. It's the same with the Crohn's. Just learning to listen and say, you know what, I can't do this right now. Let me try something else.
Yeah.
Or let me take a break this time and I'll push through a different time.
Yep.
Let me take this moment to be quiet,
To be
which is
quiet.
difficult. And I think
Especially
that's
when you're like a type A workaholic trying to
yes,
work 6 part-time jobs and being a mom and doing all these crazy things.
yes.
Yeah.
I've always been a runner. I was a triathlete for a number of years, and tell me to miss a workout. Mm-mm, mm-mm. I mean, there were days. I think probably. I mean, it's funny now, but the reality, it was so tragic, and it was just like, Brady, stop. When I had in 2016, my Crohn's was continually getting worse. You know how it is. The
Yeah.
medication I was on just didn't seem to be working. And I did Ironman North Carolina 70.3. And I mean, I just barely slid across that finish line. And I was so thankful that they gave out pajama pants because I needed them.
Yeah.
And it continued to get worse. That was in, I think, November 2016. And then finally, around January, February 2017, I woke up one morning to go for a run and I just collapsed.
Oh my God.
The Crohn's was so bad. But wouldn't you know that instead of just stopping, I would run for a while, go find a porta potty, run for a while, go behind a tree,
Yes.
and my husband's sitting at home. I just told him I'm going for a 5 mile run, which normally would never take more than 40 minutes. And he's like, it's an hour and 15. Should I call the cops? And, I remember one day I had made it about 2.5 miles from my house and was, turning around. And I mean, they couldn't, it was at the marina right by the Pentagon.
Wow.
So, I had to stop at the bathroom there and probably spend a good 45 minutes. And then I'm just determined to just run home. But I just kept collapsing. At one point, I'm just lying in the grass, and all these military members leaving the Pentagon were like, can I help you? Can I call somebody? Can I give you a ride? And I'm like,
Oh my God.
no, I still have 2.5 miles left on my run. And they're looking at me like, you're not running. So I know how hard it is, just,
Yeah.
because I was always, no, there's a 5 mile run on my schedule. Look, it says right here.
It's on my schedule, therefore I must do it.
Yeah, it's not, what's the coach going to say? It said Saturday, 40 mile bike ride followed by 5 mile run. Well, my hands are tied.
Yeah.
So learning how to untie my own hands and say, okay, you can't do it today.
That it's okay to say no sometimes. Think of the long term as opposed to the short term and listen to yourself and be quiet in this moment to have better
And you'll be
longevity
fine.
going.
You miss one run. I
Yeah.
mean, it's difficult. That particular flare, I finally did give up. I
Good.
realized, okay, and sometimes at some point you have to realize you're not just harming yourself, you're harming the people that love you. Because
Yes.
my husband's just looking at his watch like she's been gone for an hour and a half. When do I call the cops? And they're like, no, just ask them to check all the porta potties along the Mount Vernon Trail, honey. I'm fine. Uh,
Oh my God.
don't worry about me.
It's
Uh,
so important though for the people in your inner circle to support you when you do make a change in order to truly support you and go along with you. My husband, so sweet. We weren't even engaged yet. And that's when someone who was not a doctor, I actually went to see a dermatologist because I suddenly felt like my skin was on fire. I get
mhm.
out of the shower and feel like I was on fire. And I would slather myself with Benadryl cream. I was like, what is going on? And I went in and turned out my histamine levels were insane. And
Oh,
that's when she went, do you have an autoimmune? I was like, actually, I have Crohn's. And she went, aha. And she's the one who suggested the paleo diet. Now, I tried paleo before it was the trendy thing.
right.
My version's a little bit different, but it was this hardcore 90-day reset.
Hmm.
My sweet husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, went, I'm going to do this with you. I went, really?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
he's
And we did it together. And it was a bonding experience. We would have kind of date nights at home, cooking and playing with something, figuring it all out. And it's really become our lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. It's not just kind of a quick fix. And then you would tweak and you can add, after 90 days, I could get back dark chocolate.
Oh, yeah.
Once I got that back, it was fine. I was like, I can do the rest of this. This is fine. I didn't miss the other stuff because I felt so much better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I always say, probably my worst vice is I love my wine.
Hmm.
So I just, can't say no to it. But everything else, it's very limited carbs, healthy carbs when I do eat them, heavy on vegetables, not eating the legumes, getting all that lean,
It's huge. Hmm.
healthier proteins in my diet. It really does make a big difference in how I feel
Oh, yeah.
and even managing my flares if I do have a flare,
Yep.
just making sure to pay attention to what's going in my body and how I'm treating it.
Yes.
I and sometimes I don't think doctors get this because they live in a world of we're going to do this blood work, we're going to do this particular test, and then we're going to give you this
Medical
medication.
journal, look at the, yeah.
Yeah, and I was trying to explain to my GI once. It was during that flare when I couldn't run. I'm like, well, look, first of all, I have races to run. You've got to get me fixed. This is driving me nuts. I'm a runner. You can't do this to me. But second of all, when I couldn't run, when my body was just not allowing me to do anything,
Yeah.
that's when I started getting sick all the time.
Ugh.
So when they talk about these drugs you're on that are immunocompromising, you know what? It's not so bad when I'm eating right and I'm active.
Yeah.
But when I can't do the things, I catch everything. Get the
Everything.
cold, all the flus, you name it, I got it. And
Yeah.
it's much, much worse.
Yeah.
And try to explain that to a doctor who doesn't necessarily live in that world. And he just would look at me kind of strange, like, why would your body be sicker now than, because I'm sitting
Because
on the
my immune
couch
system is
crying all day long in pain. I need to move. That's healthy for your body. It does the good things
it
for you.
does such good for your body. I've been a dancer my whole life, and when I was in severe flares when I was younger and couldn't, you feel it so much. And
Hmm.
when you're moving, it just does something to you, and it all helps it work. And I've always talked about how acting, singing, dancing they're all connected, and breath and body work with the breath too. It's all connected, and it just helps you feel so much better when you're able to move. Now, some people, it sounds like you too, love to go to the gym and work out and do.
Yes.
Yes, I've never been a big worker outer person. I am a put me in a dance studio for 3 hours. I'm happy as can be.
Yes.
Tell me to run a treadmill for an hour, or get a mile done on the treadmill. That is not my cup of tea. But
To
when
be
I
fair,
push
I can't
myself
do
to do it, you feel better afterwards. You just
You
do.
really do. I'm
Yeah.
more of an outdoor runner. I fully believe in the vitamin D of the sun.
Yeah.
Get outside. One of my guests on this show was talking about wake up in the morning. First thing you do, get outside, get that sunlight. It changes your mood. It changes how you view the
Mm.
world. It changes everything about your day. And he's, very much right. When I wake up in the morning, I'm not a morning person either.
No.
People say, oh, you must be a morning person. I'm like, no, I'm cranky. You got to leave me alone. But, all the same, I'll wake up and I go for that run and it changes my mood for the entire day.
She's like, hello.
Sunny approves. Sunny says, "Yes, you are nicer, Mom."
I'm kind of forced to become a morning person. I have an 18-month-old and an almost 5-year-old. So
Mhm.
I have had nothing but early mornings in the last 5 years or so. And it does make you kind of get used to it. But before I had Lila, my husband, he's a runner, he
Mhm.
loved Spartan races, he used to do marathons, and he, of course, wants to get back into that too. He got obsessed with Orange Theory Fitness.
Yeah,
Now,
that was fun.
it's nationwide now, but it started in LA. And so we were kind of there. And he went, all right, for me, it's Valentine's Day. Come with me. I went, really? You want this to be about? Okay, okay. So I went with him and I wound up loving it. And we would get up and do those 6:30 a.m. classes
Yes.
days a week. It became our rhythm. We'd come home, he'd get in the shower, get ready for work. I'd make us a great breakfast. He'd go and it'd be 8 a.m. I would have completely worked out,
Hmm.
had an amazing green smoothie, had a fabulous protein based breakfast, and I was ready to just get my day going. And I felt like I'd been so accomplished by 8
Yeah,
a.m.
you can do anything in the world.
I loved that. Since becoming a mommy, that hasn't happened. I have to find that rhythm again
Yeah,
as
you
far
have to
as
start
getting
off
back to the
different
gym.
times.
But there is something to be said for getting up, getting moving, getting into
Mhm.
the sunlight,
Yes,
doing something for you at the start of the day. It just kind of sets your entire day into a positive motion.
it really does. I say this over and over and over again when people ask me why I wake up so early. I say it's not that I'm a morning person. I'm cranky. I want to hit snooze. My husband is a morning person. You know, I try throwing things at him as he's so perky, but you know what? I have to share my day from probably 7:30 or 8 onwards with
Yeah,
other people. You know, coworkers, your boss, your family members, your friends. That time before 8 a.m. is mine
that's you
and
time.
mine only.
That is you
So,
time.
you start your day with intention. You
Yep.
wake up, you get that sunlight, you go for a run, you have your, protein rich breakfast, your
Yep.
shake, whatever it is you want.
Yeah.
I read sometimes.
Oh,
I'll wake up at
you
4 and go for my run. And then, if it's a nice day, I'll sit outside and just sit there and read my book for 30 to 45 minutes. And it really does change your day.
it changes your mindset completely. You're getting so much love, and it is adorable.
She she refused to let us do this episode without her. And
Oh, I'm glad she's here.
she's my little Crohn's support dog. She's always here with me no matter what.
I love it. Gotta
She's
ask, what is one of your favorite go-to feel-good delicious meals that you make?
Oh my goodness. And this way, believe it or not, it's actually very easy on my stomach. It goes against some of the other things I do, but my husband and I know I can make it for him every week and he'll eat it. And he is not the healthiest eater, despite all of his army time. You'd think he'd be a healthier man. But during the week, I do stuffed peppers. And I just,
Ooh,
we cut a bell pepper in half
yeah,
and put it into the broiler for a little bit, just until it starts to get a little bubbly. And then we do a lean ground turkey with diced tomatoes, red
yum.
onion, and black beans, which actually just I don't know, for me it's high protein, feels fabulous, always feel good. And then we put that mixture into the bell pepper half and top it with some cotija cheese and cilantro. And my husband will eat that every day of the week if I
I
ask him.
am salivating. That sounds
It is,
so good. We've made stuffed peppers before too. That's such a good
yes,
one. Yeah.
definitely a fave. And then, of course, for me, breakfast, I always do a yogurt something, usually yogurt with fresh
Mm,
berries. But the probiotics, it's just really
it's
a
important.
good
Do
start
you
to
take any additional probiotics? Because there's a huge
you know,
debate. I just had this talk with my GI. We
oh,
had
really?
the meet up, the month marker after a colonoscopy, just to talk. And he asked me what I'm taking, and I mentioned the probiotic. He went, "You're still on the probiotic." I said, "Yeah." And he was just talking about how there's this whole thing of, are they beneficial? Are they not beneficial? There's not enough of the numbers of the study to show it. But there are patients who truly are feeling a difference.
Yeah,
Different brands do different things. And what are you on? Which brand are you taking?
I do it's a probiotic for women. It also contains cranberry to help with UTIs. But
Hmm.
I end up on antibiotics quite a bit with as many sinus infections as I get each year,
Yeah.
and it helps every time.
Wow.
If I'm taking an antibiotic and I'm like, oh, this is going the wrong direction, I start taking
Probiotic.
my
Yeah.
probiotics and I'm
Yeah.
fine.
Yep. I've been
They
taking the
work.
Flora forever. Forever. I think maybe
Yes.
10, 11 years. That's the one you kind of need the doctor's code to then call and get. But before that, I did Primal Defense. for
Okay.
years. And then there's that one in the white bottle with the blue lid. I know the label, but I can't remember the
That's how I
name.
know everything too.
Yes, and I used to take that one for a long time too. But I've always found them very beneficial when you're not feeling
Me
well,
too.
up it a little bit, or if you're on antibiotics, up it a little bit. My poor little baby, she had a string of ear infections
Oh
about
no.
6 months ago and had to be on antibiotics. And her little tummy was getting affected. And so I immediately did some research and found a wonderful baby probiotic.
Right.
It did, it evened her out. So I know it's mixed, and some doctors are saying it's not legitimate, and other doctors are going to say
Yeah.
go for it. But for me, it works.
Yeah, and that's what's important. If it works for you, do it.
Do
If it
it.
doesn't work, that's fine. But
Right.
if it works, do it. It's like I didn't know about the iodine in your sinus rinse
Right.
until recently. And I'm like, why did nobody tell me this? And I've read, and there's some doctors who are like, well, maybe it doesn't work. Well, you know what? It got rid of my last sinus infection
It's
without me
fine.
having to go on an antibiotic. So, and I probably have to take antibiotics for a sinus infection. I get at least 7 sinus infections a year, and I'll take antibiotics if it gets bad enough for at least 3 or 4 of them.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So,
And it
I mean,
helps.
it really does. I mean, if it works for you, it works for you.
Right.
So we both are big into the probiotics. What about you? What's your go-to meal? Favorite just
Okay. The
normal meal?
stuffed peppers, I was like, oh, that sounded so good. There are so many, but for us, we call it turkey mush. It's not kind of our take
Mm,
on turkey bolognese. And it's dairy free and gluten free and
oh,
fabulous. It's
nice.
just the ground turkey and it's simmered with the onions and the garlic and everything. And then we do a different variety of it. But the biggest trick that I learned, if you use allspice on meat, it's incredible. And a little cinnamon, it brings out a different richness
Mhm.
flavor, and you don't realize that there's not creams and heavy
Yep.
richness in there with those in there. And a little tomato sauce. Sometimes we'll throw in some zucchini and just kind of mix that all in together. And we'll do it either over a gluten-free noodle or a rice noodle, or
Mm.
sometimes a baked sweet potato. That's my favorite.
But that's my go-to for everything. I can make anything and everything with a sweet potato.
With the sweet potato.
Soups, bakes, you name it, goes with sweet potato.
Unbelievable.
It's
It's
so
so
good
good
too.
for you. It's so nutrient dense and it's delicious. And all you need is to doctor it a little bit and it's mouthwatering.
Yes. And it's amazing. I mean, I wish I could, I don't want to say control, bad word, but my husband's food for all meals because I know when he's not at home, he chooses what, he's from Texas and he's ordering fried chicken and gravy every time, but he loves it. I mean, that Texas boy who loves his barbecue and his fried chicken and his gravy and biscuits, for dinners, he never gets that unless we go out to eat because I'm making sweet potatoes, lean ground turkey,
Yep.
lean chicken breasts, and he just doesn't get that, but he loves it.
But he loves it because it's
He loves
delicious.
it.
It's
It's really good.
delicious. And people kind of go, oh, that can't be that good. It's so
No, it is.
good. And I'm really lucky, especially since baby number two arrived. My husband has really stepped up to the plate and he makes dinners a lot while I'm with
Oh,
the
yeah.
kids. But we've learned our recipes together. And so now he takes them and then he'll even take them up a notch. We always say he should have been a chef in a former life or may even still become one. He
We'll have
likes
to
to
put him and
go,
my husband together because he's a cook too.
oh, love that. Yes, he'll be like, I'm just going to try this and I'm just going to try that. And he takes our recipes and then just takes them up to the nines and they're fabulous.
Oh, lovely. I have to supervise a little bit with my husband because he'll give him an inch and he'll take 14 creams and a fatty something. And I'm like, Steve, no,
I can't have that. Please take that away. Yeah.
not good. He finally got the creams though. Sometimes he'll start to get an idea because these ideas of, they just come in and he's like, ooh, wouldn't a creamy pasta be great tonight? And I'm like, and then he'll go, wait, no, 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 you can't have cream.
Have you guys tried making creams with cashews?
We have, and it is delicious. I mean, it's labor intensive, not gonna
I was
lie.
gonna say no, yeah, the Alfredo sauce with the cashew, it takes a little bit to do, but when you get the spicings just right,
It's delicious.
it's delicious.
It
It's
really
so
is.
good.
I always say to people, even if maybe you don't have time to do it every night,
No.
but Sunday you can do some pre-prep and have some of that stuff ready. It's
Yes.
really worth the extra time because it's so good.
1000% worth the extra. My husband and I were just talking about this because we're mid-move. We're moving out of my parents' house right now into our own house. And we
Mhm.
want to get back on that pre-planned meals, especially for us for lunches because things are so busy. We
Yeah.
used to on Sunday evenings cook in bulk, and that would be our lunches for the week. dinners for the week. And it made life so much easier, especially on those chaotic days. And you know, you
Yes.
have delicious, nutrient dense meals ready to go. It just
It's
saves so much.
best way. Best way. I always have those couple go-tos. The stuffed peppers is one because I know it's not gonna take me more than 15 minutes. Um, there's also I call it the chicken hummus tacos, but I use this, what's it
Ooh,
called? Tomorrow's it's a high protein, low carb wrap.
yum.
But I put the hummus on there and then I just bake some chicken and put some nice spices on there, cut it up, and then add a little the feta cheese, and it's
Oh my
delicious.
gosh, that sounds
It's
amazing.
delicious. And kale. And
And
then
yeah, ooh,
kale with I toss it in fresh lemon juice.
I'll have to try this one. That sounds so good.
Sun-dried tomatoes. And
Yeah,
it's really just delicious. It really is. But it takes me about 15 minutes. So those are always kind of my go-tos. I know I could do it in
just
15
the quick,
minutes. Just put it
delicious.
together. It's going to be really good. But yes, Sunday night, you know,
Yes.
don't have anything else to do. Cook.
We're gonna get back into that habit in a couple of weeks. Once the girls are in bed, we're gonna make Sunday night kind of like our home date night in the kitchen,
Yes.
meal prepping, which I think will be great. It's gonna be a little different now because with the girls, we have to do more, a larger amount to figure out what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
they are amazing little eaters. And we kind of dealt with this thing of, well, I can't have dairy. I can't have shellfish. There's certain things I can't have. Do we never have it in the house? I don't want the girls
Mm,
to develop an intolerance to anything. So
right.
we still give them regular string cheese, like regular mozzarella, and we'll do
Right.
pizza, just so I don't want them to develop anything. But they usually eat just like me and my husband and my oldest daughter, who's now almost 5. When she was 18 months old, one of my best friends was over and she came over and asked for snack and she asked for cheese and pear. So I'm cutting over. She loved the goat Gouda. This is what she loved.
Oh,
Cutting
yes.
the goat Gouda and slicing the pear and giving it to her. And my friend would look at this and go, "Your baby eats better than I do." I'm like, she loves it. She just kind of eats what I
Well,
eat.
I don't have children. You know, you saw my children. They have fur and 4 legs.
So cute.
But we did live in Europe for a while. And there was a book written by an American woman who was living in Paris about the difference in raising children in the US versus Europe.
Mm.
And because in Europe, there's no such thing as a kids menu. There's no second meal for the kids. They eat what you're eating.
Yep.
If you just cooked boeuf bourguignon, guess what your 4-year-old's eating?
You're gonna eat.
But because they grow up eating it with you, they've never been given anything special. They
Yep.
love it. And I think there's something to that.
It's true.
Raising, you yourself. And of course, if you have an autoimmune disease, your children have a higher
Have a higher risk. I did the
chance.
genetic testing before we got pregnant. I wanted to see if I was a carrier for anything. My husband, we did a couple tests on him just to see who we could get ahead of it. And luckily, the only thing that I'm a carrier for is something called Mediterranean familial fever,
Oh,
which
wow.
is similar to the Crohn's IBD world, but it's very
Oh,
rare. And your partner also has to be a carrier, and only then there's a 25% chance of passing it on.
well,
So I was
that's
like, oh, yay. So the girls won't have it. But I have heard mixed things of I have Crohn's. Could the girls develop
right.
Crohn's? And I have heard a hard no, it's not genetic. And I've heard, oh, it's possible. And so it's one of those things of, well, what's the real answer? Does anybody know?
There's so
We
much
don't
they're still
know.
researching. It's veterans. Thousands of us, tens of hundreds of thousands of us. I don't know all the numbers. I know it's an extreme number of us came home with IBD. And of course, usually if you have IBD, you're diagnosed relatively young, teenager, 20s. Like I was diagnosed in my late 30s, and it wasn't until after I came home from Afghanistan.
Mm.
So I've been talking to a couple of different doctors and researchers, and there's a lot of new studies showing that it's actually a combination of things. You have to have the gene,
Hmm.
and then there's an environmental.
I was about to say, and then
So
environmental.
maybe I had the
Mhm.
gene already, and then I served next to burn pits, which would explain why some of us serving next to burn pits got IBD and others did not.
Didn't. Wow.
It was just a matter of did you have the gene and happen to go through this particular environmental incident? You know,
And the two of them just set it off.
they just come together, and the next thing you know, Crohn's disease,
That's
which
amazing.
is interesting.
That is so fascinating. The human body is so complex
It
and
really
it's
is.
incredible, but it can be mind boggling and a little overwhelming at times when you go, wait a minute, this and this lined up in this way, and now this has happened.
I know.
Where, like you were talking about the lupus, the drug-induced lupus, and no
Yes.
one knows much about this, and it's just a wild, uncharted territory, it feels like. And even when the medical professionals don't necessarily know,
Yes.
and you feel lost and you feel like you're blowing something out of proportion or that you feel crazy, and then you
Mhm.
start to doubt it. And it's like, no, something is
No,
going on. Listen to me.
it's
Something's happening.
it's not. I just recently, I mean, I've had a couple of doctors, listen, but most of them would just say, "Well, I don't know. I've never heard of it. It can't be a thing." I'm like, "Well, there's a lot I've never heard
Like,
of.
that's
I
not
don't
true.
deny it's a thing." But I have a new primary care doctor. I'm back at Walter Reed for all of my care. And
Mhm.
this group of doctors really do listen. When I said they asked, I had blood work done.
Mhm.
And my primary said, we looked at it and it doesn't show anything. And I said, well, it never did. And he's like, well, how did you get diagnosed with drug-induced lupus? I said, just by the symptoms. I had lupus rash. I had sun rash all over my chest anytime I go outside in the sun.
Mm.
The muscles were all knotted up that we just, 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals lupus. And sure enough, when I came off the drug, everything started slowly subsiding.
Yeah.
But when I said that, he's interesting. We've always thought that you had to show the blood work to indicate drug-induced lupus. And I said, well, actually, many of the people I'm talking to never had it show up on their blood work ever.
Yeah.
So, just these like this podcast, you and me working with the Crohn's Colitis Foundation,
Yeah.
support groups, we really are the information for a lot of these doctors. And while some just don't listen because they think, well, if I've never heard of it, you probably don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
There are many others who say, oh, there's a
They're
group of
very open
patients who
to it.
all
They
experience
do.
the same thing.
Yes.
It's not something I understand.
Yeah.
Interesting. Tell me more about it.
Yeah. They're truly open to it. They go, oh, I don't know everything. Tell me more about how you feel. Let's work on this together. Whenever I come across a medical professional like that, I go, thank you. Yeah.
Well, and of course, to be fair, it was a doctor probably 10 years older than me that finally said, you need to come off the Humira. But
Mm.
since everything happened, I've been looking for young doctors.
Who are right on the cutting edge and
You know what?
reading all the stuff and
They
going to
don't have the
conferences.
ego, like they're not like, well, I've been doing this for
Been
50
doing this for
years.
3 years.
So they're like, well, I've been out here a year and the patient says this, maybe I should go check it out. And then they take time. You remember, when you first started your career, you're always so
Absolutely.
eager to learn, you're going home, you're reading extra, you're
Oh, yeah.
trying to learn new things that you haven't done yet. So that's what I've been experiencing with the young doctors, they're like, oh, I don't know that.
They're eager,
I
they're
gotta find out.
fascinated, they're at the
Yes.
beginning of it, and they wanna be on that cutting edge room floor and being like, "I
Learn.
know what's happening, and let's collaborate," and I've noticed
Yes.
that the younger doctors, this is nothing against the olders because some of them are
Yes.
fabulous,
Yes.
but they're just much more open to collaboration and looking from at a different point of view and saying it's
Exactly.
not black and white, there are 50 shades of gray in there, or any other number of shades,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Where just because one person has this or one person has that, or the definition in the medical journal is this, does not rule out that this could be happening instead. And it's so refreshing
It
when you
really
come
is.
across someone like that and they go, I was at a conference and someone was talking about something that you were talking about. Hang on, let me pull that up. And they
Yep.
pull up these notes and then they get to put you in touch with somebody else. And then this network, a true safe network has started to develop. And
Yep.
that has been a huge difference from 21 years ago to now, is that
Absolutely.
safety factor, feeling heard, feeling respected, not feeling marginalized, not
Yep.
feeling made to feel crazy. All of those little things where I would then go, okay, well, whatever you say, and just be in
Just
pain and
yep.
swallow it and deal with it. Versus now, if nope, something doesn't feel right, let me reach out right now. Something's starting. They go, all right, let's look at XYZ and figure out what's different and what changed and get you back on track. And it's different.
It really is. There's a lot to be said for age and just the experience of being a patient,
Yeah.
you know. Um, I stayed on my Humira for years, even though I didn't start with the clear drug-induced lupus symptoms until 2020. But, I would come into my doctor and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. I feel off. And then he'd just say, no, that's not a thing. Like, oh, okay. And then I just shut up. But then, of course, once I've had that big reaction to Humira, now I'm like, no, something's wrong and you're going to investigate it. And
You
maybe I'm going
have to be your own advocate.
to
As scary as it is at first, And like I said, I'm very much a people pleaser. And if someone's not liking something, I'll go, oh, okay, not anymore.
Nope.
You have to stand up for yourself. Say something does not feel right, something does not seem right. And if I see someone who's come to me for help or an opinion, because I'm not a doctor, but people do come to me for advice, for opinions. And if I see something, then I can be their advocate and
Hmm.
say, no, go talk to so and so. Let's figure this out. You shouldn't have to feel this way. Let's do something about it.
And I
Be
think that's
proactive.
that right there. That's the most important thing we can do as patients for each other, especially those of us who are more experienced at this point. Reach out, be there.
Yes,
I
you're
have,
not alone.
yeah, like the let me help you. We're gonna. Yeah, I had a boss tell me years ago. When I very first commissioned in the Army, and she'd been in for almost 20 years, and she said, it's very important. It's your job to climb the ladder, but then pause and reach back and pull up the next woman.
I love
And I think that applies to those of us chronically ill as well. It's important to take a moment, pause, and reach out and help that next person who doesn't know what they're experiencing or
it.
how to advocate for themselves or ask for the right things. It's very important to just take that moment, pause, and help the next person, because when we do that, it's going to be so much
100%.
better for the
Yeah.
patients behind us.
I just got chills with you saying that. I have the visual of that, of being on the ladder and reaching down, and it's so true.
Mhm.
It's beautiful and true. And I just hope that more and more people who are in positions like you and I have, and we've overcome, even though we're still living in it, we help the next, and then they help the next. And that's just how we're all going to get through this.
It really is, because we need each other.
We
I
do. There's a stigma, unfortunately, especially with Crohn's, anything icky. No one wants to talk about it. It's very hush hush and taboo. And
Oh
that's one
yeah.
reason why I've always wanted to be, in a way, the face of Crohn's and go, no, look, this is what life can be. This is what you can do. Let me help you. Let you help yourself. Let's work together. And if you're going through a flare, that's horrible. But let's help you feel a little better while it's happening. And then we
Exactly.
pick up and keep going.
There's so much. When I think back, I ask everybody on this show, what do you wish you knew when you were first diagnosed? And there's going to be a book someday, because there's
Yeah.
so I think back, and the things I wish I'd known, somebody would have told me, because I feel like I was just kind of flailing about and punching my way through. I was doing things the way I know how. Well, let me just, push through this moment. Let me find a way. I couldn't get to work. So I was like, you know what? Let me find a job that's flexible. So I became a realtor. And, I was just kind of like going through things step by step by step as quick as I could.
Yeah.
And if somebody had come to me and said, I know you don't know what's next. Right now, you're very sick and you don't have a timetable, but you are covered by the ADA. If somebody would have just said that to me, I would have said, huh?
Yeah. You're like, what?
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
what the, because, you know, who thinks about the ADA?
Who thinks about
You
that?
don't,
Right?
it's there. I didn't even need to ask what the acronym was, but did I really know what it was about?
Did you know
No,
what? Right.
I didn't know a darn thing. I
Oh my
didn't know a darn thing. I had a friend of mine. She did the show a while back, and she talked about, when she was going through a bad flare. She was a salaried employee. She got all of her work done, and her boss came back and said, "Oh, you still owe me X number of hours for the times you weren't in the office." And she said, "Nope, the ADA says," and I said, "Good for you."
Good for you.
That's
Yes.
because I until somebody said it to me, I was like, "What?"
You had no idea. There
Yeah,
are so many bits like that where you just had no idea until someone else tells you. It's
yeah.
not always the medical community. In fact, most of the time, it's not the medical community. You
No,
find out little things like that and you go, oh, let me put that away in my tool belt in case I need that in the future.
that's going to be important. I remember
Mhm.
when I first told my doctor, I was like, "I can't get to work. What am I supposed to do?" And he said, "Well, apply for disability." And I'm like,
You're like, why would I?
"I don't know. I don't know. That's not an option.
Disability.
How do I fix this? And what do I do?" You know? And if somebody was going through that now, I would have reached out and said, "Okay, the first thing we need to do is, let's go over the ADA. Here's what you're entitled to. Second, we need, you know, call in HR and your boss and say, can we come up with a plan?"
Yes.
And, there's all these things that, when you're going through it, you know how it is. Every Crohn's patient, every colitis,
Oh,
every
when
chronic
you're going through it, it's horrible.
and you're just trying to punch your way to the other side somehow.
Hmm.
You really are. You're
Hmm.
just making decisions.
Yep.
All right, well, we'll do this next. Okay, well, good, make that happen. Now, don't worry, I got this, and it's, you need that help, somebody to come in and say, okay, breathe. We'll get you through.
Get you through. Let's try this. Let's try that. Deep breathing. Let's connect to yourself for a moment and let's get through this.
You and I are going to do a cookbook
Yep.
and some exercise.
Yep.
I, I believe in it because it's helped my outcome so much, and it's the same with you.
Me too. 1000%. The cookbook is in the works. I started the support group as Mrs. Maryland Petite. That has been my whole platform is Crohn's disease awareness and advocacy because again, no one wants to talk about it. And I kind of want to peel back the curtain and go, hey,
Yeah.
there's a whole community of us here. I just filmed. I'm going to be releasing a documentary very shortly. I filmed my colonoscopy last month.
Oh wow, good for
Just
you.
to
That's
show
great.
people this. Oh my goodness, I'm doing the prep. I have my 18-month-old on my hip. I'm starting to take the prep. She tries to grab it. I went, you don't want this. Like, trust me,
Yeah.
sweetheart, you don't want to take this. But I wanted to show what it's really about because people are scared of it.
They
They
are.
think it's icky. They don't want to do it. And 90% of those deaths related to colorectal cancer are completely preventable by doing colonoscopies and regular screenings. And they recently changed the age from 50 to 45 for your first
Yep.
one. And
Yep.
there's so many people where just do it. So I kind of wanted to show, yes, the prep is unpleasant. You know that firsthand. That's the worst part. But then it's
You know what
not
I always
bad.
say? It's a free cleanse. It's free. You're getting a free cleanse. There are people who pay money for this every day. Free.
Okay, devil wears Prada. This is something my husband and I always say going into a colonoscopy, and he's the one who says it. Just one stomach flew away from my goal weight.
I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that afterwards I'm like, honey, I need a hamburger. It really would be one stomach.
Yeah.
That's my one time where I'm like, I'm eating all the things.
Eating everything you can that night. It's true.
I don't
Good
care.
for you. And again, everyone is different this way. Most people have a colonoscopy and they're fine the next day.
Yep.
It takes me a good 5 days or so to kind of bounce back and forth.
Oh yeah.
Do you have that experience or are you fine again the next day?
I'm fine again the next day.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, what surprised people is things got really before the drug-induced lupus, obviously. I would always schedule my colonoscopies for a Monday morning, first thing.
Mm.
And I'd get up Sunday and I'd do my scheduled run, 10, 12 miles, whatever. And then I'd eat a breakfast. And then I'd start the prep
Yep.
later that day. And everybody's like, but you ran 10 miles the day before your colonoscopy? And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Don't worry.
Okay, let's go.
But I do. I bounce back every time for some reason.
I tend to schedule. That's so funny. Everyone has their own rhythm. I tend to schedule on Wednesdays because I know I'm going to need the weekend to fully recover.
That's a good,
And then by Monday, I'm okay again. There was one time in Los Angeles, it's just the way it boiled down. I had the colonoscopy scheduled, ready to go. And I found out last minute that I was going to be shooting an episode of General Hospital. I got a call the day before and I was on set the day of the prep.
Oh, yes. Yay.
I was like, oh, how am I going to get through this? And luckily we wrapped in time to get home to actually do the prep, but you're not eating, as you know.
Oh,
Leading
yeah.
up to the prep and that whole first day before, it's liquids and to be, well, you ran. I'm in awe of you. You ran. To be on set and be working when you have nothing in your body, when you're getting ready for a colonoscopy prep, is a whole nother level of exhaustion. So I was very, very relieved that I had that on a Wednesday because I needed that weekend to then go back to set on Monday.
It's true. But, my tip is if you are a runner, if you're not a runner, it's probably not smart. But if you're a runner, getting that morning run, it helps make that prep go through quick.
I was going to say that makes sense.
Your metabolism's already working, so I don't have to do as many bottles of the.
Do you have, this might be a weird question. So you already said hamburger. Is that like your favorite go-to meal after colonoscopy?
It really is. It's weird. Hamburger is one of those things I never, ever, ever, ever eat in life, ever.
Mm-hmm.
I never have a craving for it. I don't, it's not my thing, but after a colonoscopy or a big race, a marathon or 70.3,
Yeah,
hamburger.
that's what you want.
I don't care. Eating the hamburger.
I love that. I know when my iron is low because that's when I crave burgers or a nice piece of lean red meat. And I'm like, oh, my iron must be a little.
I just need a steak
For
today.
me, it's so funny. My mom's spaghetti, which you would think is not something you'd want to eat right after a colonoscopy, but that is, it's become our joke since I was 17 years old. My mom will make a pot of
Spaghetti.
her spaghetti on the day when I have a
It's
colonoscopy.
just amazing what you want after that. You, well, actually, you know what? And maybe it's because I've had so many. You know how it is.
Oh
How
yeah.
many colonoscopies have you had in your life?
This one, I believe this was lucky number 18. I
Yeah.
actually do think this was number 18.
I remember the first one, I was just nervous.
Oh, so
Now it's so
nervous.
much a part of my routine in life that I actually kind of look forward to them.
You get a nap. You get a real nap.
The best nap you were ever going to have in your life. Like, why are you guys so scared? You busy? You haven't had time to yourself?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Now you're about to get a free cleanse,
Yeah. You're gonna
and
take
then you're going to go in and you're
the
going to get the best nap of your life. No kids, no boss, no nothing. Just nap.
yeah. And my 4-year-old, she was so sweet. She crawled into bed with me. I have a cute little video of it last month. And she sang me a lullaby and wanted to snuggle with me afterwards. I was like,
Aw.
oh, honey, you're like the best
See?
elders ever. So
This
sweet.
is this is the stuff we need to talk about with colonoscopies. It's not negative.
No. I'll let you know when that documentary drops. It's just going to be like a 10-minute. It just shows the prep, what it's like. We weren't in the OR, obviously, but you should, the befores and the afters, and then follow up a few days later just to show what it's all about. Not
Yeah,
to be scared of it. Take control of your health. It's one of the only things in life you can control. Do it. Get ahead
yeah,
of it. I mean, sometimes you need biopsies. I don't know about you, but I always get a whole
oh
bunch of
yeah.
biopsies. Yeah. And so just making sure everything's all right. And it's one of the few things you really can do to stay on top of your health
Yep.
for you, for your loved ones. Just do it. Be proactive and do it. So that's why I recorded this thing of just to
I'm
show
glad
everybody,
you did.
you know,
This is Maryland Petite USA. We need talking about the Crohn's.
talking about Crohn's. Yes.
About
And I just launched last month, kickincrohns.com. And it is an online weekly support group for people who are affected with Crohn's disease, where we can come to a safe, non-judgmental place. You
yeah,
can laugh, cry, scream, do whatever you want because we don't
yeah.
have that space yet. And I wanted to make that for all of us who go through this to just come in and be like, I had a rough week. Can I just talk about it, please? Somebody else who may know what's going on. It's so important to have that space for people.
And it's amazing how it hasn't been here before.
Right.
It's amazing. I'd never had anybody to talk to. When I first met my friend that I was talking about earlier who has Crohn's disease, she said,
Mhm.
I don't know, I've never had anybody to talk to. This has been amazing. Nobody's ever understood.
No one has. And you feel so alone and
Yes.
isolated. And you don't want to talk to people because you feel like you're burdening them with your problems and you think it's icky and you're embarrassed. So when you
Right.
find the right community, it goes, oh my gosh. And it just helps your emotional state, your mental state. Not to get all dark, but when I used to do Remicade, and you've probably experienced this too, we were in the same infusion center as the cancer patients.
Hmm.
And you would get to know people.
Yeah.
And there were these 3 people I actually got really friendly with. And every 6 to 8 weeks, I'd be in there doing treatments with them. And
Hmm.
then one week I'd come and someone wasn't there.
I know.
And
Yeah.
I'd come the next time and someone else wasn't there. And it does do something to your psyche of
It does.
how sick am I if I am in this room with these people
Vulnerable.
who are dying? What can I do to get ahead of this? Is there anything I can do to get ahead of this? Does this define my life? And when you're 18 and 19 years old doing this, it does. It does something to your brain
It
where you
does.
go, I can't do all these dreams and things that I want to do. I can't be a mother. I'm not going to be able to stay up and to take care of my children. And then when I had that horrible crash in 2012, getting back to a dance class, to going on a hike, being terrified that my body was going to give out on me,
Yeah.
not being able to trust it, you have to relearn to trust your body. I know
You
you
do.
went through that too, where you have to learn to
Yes.
go, no, I've got this. It's okay.
One of the things that I could have never anticipated, because as I was going through the whole mess, I just wanted to go for a run because that's always been my happy
That's your
place.
happy place.
I, you know, I love to work out. I love doing all these things. The run is really and truly my happy place. I step outside, I get the sunlight, I, just tune out the world and just run. I often don't even take music or anything. I just, you know,
Oh, you
yeah,
just go.
yeah. I mean, I live, in Old Town Alexandria, and I'm a quick cross of a bridge running into DC. So who needs music when I can see the cherry blossoms or tulip season or the monuments. Every Thanksgiving, I like to do the monument run where I just run up all the monuments. I'm like Rocky, and who needs music? So not being able to run was just it
Puts
did
you into a
so much
depression.
to my
It
mental
changes your
health.
psyche. Yeah, it does.
And what I was never anticipating, because, and again, much like the Brandy who, was just going to go out for her run no matter what was happening with that flare,
Yeah.
when I was going through the lupus, I would go out and try to run anyways. And I would, start running. I'd make it maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and I'd walk 4 or 5 minutes walk. And then I'd end up where I just couldn't hardly move for 3 days
Yeah.
because trying to run was just so,
Taxing on the body.
it just wrecked me.
Oh my gosh.
So when I did finally get my ability to run back, I started having panic attacks
Yes.
because I was afraid that, oh, now I'm trying to run. I'm going to end up all knotted again. I'm going to be laying down. I'm not going to be able to go to work tomorrow. I'm not going to be able to go to the grocery store. So it was interesting. That's what I was not prepared for.
No.
In a
Oh, I
panic
wasn't.
attack, doing something I love. Who
Yeah.
knew?
Yeah. Something you love is now causing harm to you? Like, what is happening?
I mean, it's amazing how these things can happen in your life, and you're caught off guard.
Oh, yeah.
You're caught off guard.
Completely.
But I'm so happy you're out there talking about it because, this is the stuff we need. We need the support groups. We need to talk about the real talk. This is what
Yes.
happens. Here's what to expect. And even those symptoms, I know nobody likes to talk about the symptoms,
They
but
don't, but we need to talk about them.
I share with my friends who don't have Crohn's disease because you know what? If you start having symptoms like me, there's also a chance you may have colon cancer.
Go get it checked out. Yep.
Go in immediately.
Around with
Go
it.
see your GI. Don't, especially the men. You know how the men are.
Oh, yeah. I'm
They're
fine.
not going to tell you about their poop
I'm not going to talk about it. No.
and go to a doctor. Not a chance.
No.
Yeah. So I always tell the men, look, I'm not asking for you to open up, but I'm just saying,
If you are experiencing any of this,
please go.
please go. Just go take care of it.
You need to do it.
Yeah.
Because they don't like, the men.
I know. I am lucky that my husband is the kind of person who wears his heart on his sleeve even more than I do sometimes.
That's
So
how
it's
my
wonderful where it's like, yes, if we have a son, I've said to him many times, show him this, that the man doesn't have to be, I'm fine and tough and never going to cry and nothing ever bothers me. No, you are human. And especially when it comes to your health,
Yep.
be
Ask for help.
proactive. Mm-hmm.
And that's good for everybody to learn. That's when I have my whole list of things I wish I knew when I was first diagnosed, and
Yes.
one of them is just ask for help. Stop being
Ask.
so stoic.
Can you
Stoic
put
is not
that
always a
in
positive.
bold and different colors and make it a bumper sticker?
Yeah.
Ask for help, that it's okay to ask for help. I'm still telling myself this because I'm the one who does
Yeah.
things for everybody all the time. It's like, no, ask for help when you need it. It's so important.
Yeah, sometimes your best qualities are your worst qualities.
1000%.
Yeah, I'm a problem solver and I'm strong, and then sometimes I need to realize, no, maybe it's time to stop problem solving, take a step back.
Then take a step back. And thank you for doing this. I love that you have a podcast like this to really get the word out there.
It's going to take us. It's the patients. Crohn's Colitis Foundation does amazing work.
They do.
When I reached out and spoke to them and said, hey, I serve on a few boards. I think I'd really like to serve on this board. It's meaningful. Yeah. Ever since, I've just learned so much about the work they do. So yeah, the foundation, you, me, patients coming together, even if we don't have a big platform, at least reaching out and helping the next patient and saying, hey, let me help you along, or let's talk.
And I'm so glad we've met this way. And I can't wait to meet you in person at the Take Steps.
We have the Take Steps walk.
Yes.
Everybody listening who wants to donate or walk with us,
Donate to the
find me on my
We
website.
have teams. Remind me, what's your team's name?
We are Chronically Fabulous.
I love it. And we are Kickin Crohn's.
Kickin Crohn.
Support us, come out, learn, walk with us. We need that support in that community.
Absolutely. It's great to be a member of this community. It's not great to be a patient of this disease, but it's amazing to be a member of this community.
But you got to find the silver linings, and meeting people like you, and those are the silver linings.
This is the stuff that makes life good.
Yes.
Makes our lives better. Well, thank you so much for doing the show.
Absolutely. Thank you.
This was amazing. Amelia Meyers, kickincrohns.com.
Yes.
And Mrs. Maryland Petite USA. I love that. I love your platform.
We're going for nationals in August. We're going for the Mrs. Petite USA title.
Mrs. Petite USA. Okay, that's exciting. I'm going to follow this now.
I will keep it. Yes, I will keep you
Yeah,
posted.
I got to know what happens. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.